For more than 3.5 centuries, Europeans have lived and died on Long Island. Some of their tombstones are still standing today.
Our burying grounds are also our records, okay, and therefore are as worthy and as in need of conservation care, etc., as are the paper records, which are all in the vault.
Some are hidden in the woods alongside old roads like Route 25A. Others are right smack in the middle of things, like the Burr family cemetery in the parking lot of Home Depot in Comac.
I don't think that everyone understands that these are the vital records of these individuals. They may be unique. At least they reinforce the paper records or contradict them.
Records set in stone. But that's not to say they'll be around forever. Smithtown historian Brad Harris has seen more than one gravesite reduced to rubble.
We found fragments of headstones that came out of the Mulford Cemetery. They were found in Huntington, abandoned at the side of the road.
Huntington historians tracked the fragments back to their original site in Fort Salonga, where a homeowner denied allegations that he destroyed them.
Under the criminal law in New York State, they have cemetery desecration in the second degree. There's a fine or felony provision here, so it's a serious crime to damage or destroy the headstones or any other part of the burial plot.
Nearby, in head of the harbor, legend of a haunted Mary's grave persists, even after vandals obliterated the entire graveyard.
The actual stone that had Mary Smith's name on it, my last reading of it was that it was down in a fraternity house in Florida somewhere.
What was left of the rest of the headstones ended up in a grave of its own.
6 inches of topsoil was put over the top of that cemetery, and seed was spread. So if you went there today, you'd see a grassy field where there had been a cemetery.
There are survivors. Richard Bull Smith is a 10th-generation descendant of one of Long Island's oldest families. His forefather, Richard Smith, founded the town of Smithtown almost 350 years ago.
I think having this so far off the beaten path, I think has certainly helped. It has kept vandalism down to next to nothing here.
Smith's been lucky. His family cemetery has withstood centuries of weathering better than most. The Strong family cemetery in Setauket is just as old, and some of the stones have worn so much that the inscriptions are illegible.
Aside from weathering and vandalism, the leading cause of damage to these historic cemeteries is actually something simple. It's landscaping. Because of that, groundskeepers try to do the least amount of work they can while still living up to their obligations.
We get impact of equipment, everything from mowers literally banging into the base of stones to weed whackers, which can be incredibly damaging.
Joel Snodgrass works with Student Roth restoring headstones. He says surface rubbings are also destructive. Instead, they use a mirror to cast deep shadows over inscriptions.
These represent the most unusual documentation that we have. It's not only sometimes the only documentation that we have.
Papers can burn, computers can crash, and there's something about a historic cemetery that attracts tourists.
My passion is history, and that's why we're here.
We went to the original site of Abraham Woodall's house, and then we came up the hill and we were looking. The reason we found this place, we heard that the bricks from his house were used for where he's buried.
I think there's a great deal of history in cemeteries.
The silent stones have stories to tell. Like Long Island, they're subject to erosion.
I feel that the responsibility for a town to its historic burying grounds is consistent with its understanding that it needs to preserve its early records.
After a period of 14 years, towns must take up the maintenance of abandoned cemeteries, but they don't always want to. It's a rule put in place to make sure no more history fades to dust. From Setauket, Long Island, I'm Michael Ruiz.